Hello. Oh, let's make sure you can hear me. You can hear me. Welcome everybody to Beyond Hegemony. This is the second try. I'm not very good at this technical stuff, so I have an amazing guest today. But before we start with this amazing guest, and I'm sorry for my tardiness, I thought I was live the whole time. I'm going to put this video up, which is of her creation and why I invited her to be on here. And let me share the screen because that's another step. Hold on. I'm going to get this down. I am going to do this. Present, share screen.
You got this.
Yeah, I got this. Hey, mistakes happen all the time. Okay. And we're sharing and we are playing.
Girl child.
Niña.
Petite fille.
Keyarinya. Tami bedu pietene sura.
Toto wa kike.
Emily-Nielsen.
Omwana ow'obuwala.
Latina nyara.
Omwana w'omwisi.
Can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be?
Deep down, I've always believed in myself and known I'm just as good as anyone else. But lately, I notice that the world treats me differently because I'm a girl.
En el fondo, siempre he creído en mí misma y sé que soy tan buena como cualquier otra persona. Pero últimamente me doy cuenta que el mundo me trata de manera diferente porque soy una niña.
What's going on here?
Girl child, you are right to question.
Do I know you?
I am your mother's mother and her mother's mother. I am the mother of all.
Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
Petite fille, tu as raison de te poser des questions.
Qui est-ce? Est-ce que je vous connais?
Je suis la mère de ta mère et la mère de sa mère. Je suis la mère de tout le monde.
Patriarchy was woven into our civilizations, our laws, economies, philosophies, sciences, and especially our religions. It is everywhere, and it is invisible.
Sarautar maza ta shigo cikin halin wayewarmu, dokokinmu, tattalin arzikinmu, ilimin dabi'unmu, kimiyyarmu, musamman addininmu. Abin yana ko'ina, kuma ba a iya ganinsa.
Women and men, girls and boys, even the earth itself are suffering under the domination of patriarchy.
မိန်းမယောက်ျားမင်းကလေးယောက်ျားလေးကဘာမြေကြီးကိုယ်တိုင်ကိုကတိဖို့အားကြီးဝါဒအုပ်ဆိုးတဲ့စနစ်အောက်မှာနာကျင်ခံစားနေရတယ်
We must keep walking the Exodus path from slavery to the freedom of the promised land. Imagine if we could re-know the beautiful world that was meant for all God's children.
A world where girls can grow up feeling safe and equally valued?
Ni lazima tuendelee kutembea kutoka kwenye njia ya utumwa na kuelekea kwenye uhuru wa nchi ya ahadi. Hebu fikiri kama tungeijenga upya dunia nzuri ya kupendeza kwa ajili yetu sote watoto.
Dunia ambayo wasichana wanaweza kukua salama na kuthaminiwa pia.
Girl child, your curiosity has set you on a path many others have walked before you. Because of their work, we know the way forward, but there's a lot more to do and more truth to discover. Are you ready to take this journey with me?
Menina criança, sua curiosidade a colocou em caminho que muitas outras já trilharam antes de você. Por causa do trabalho delas, sabemos o caminho a seguir, mas há muito mais a fazer e mais verdades a descobrir. Você está pronta para fazer essa jornada comigo?
Okay, let me just pop that. Hey, let's try again. So I want to introduce Emily-Nielsen Jones. She is one of the collaborators and creators of A Girl Child Long Walk. And thank you for joining us today at Beyond Hegemony. Thank you. Sahana and I are very excited to have you here. Garry, our other co-host, is under the weather, so he can't join us because he can't talk. And so thank you again. I saw this video and I immediately knew I wanted you to be a guest on the show, because on Beyond Hegemony, we are talking about structures like patriarchy. So if you could give the audience a little bit of information, and also those of you who are listening to the replay as a podcast, I will be putting the link to that video and another one in the podcast information. So.
Well, oops, there's a little echo in my, can you hear me? Okay, I think it's better. My name is Emily-Nielsen Jones, and I'm just so honored to be here. I am watching the sunrise from Boston, Massachusetts, and I just love that you use the video with all the languages. Yeah, it's every time I watch it, I get a little emotional. I'm just so honored that you found our video and just to be here on your podcast. I love the name Beyond Hegemony. It's just kind of a little chilling, the word hegemony, but it really speaks in some ways a little differently than, using different words like patriarchy. It just like almost like a heavy blanket that's over our brains that, for, as it says in the video, like there's more truths to discover. Each of us is on a journey of really reclaiming our consciousness. And that's been my journey within American evangelical Christianity. I started engaging globally. So I'm not sure what you asked again and where you want me to go with this.
So here you are in the position that you are in your life, what you've been going through, what you have felt.
Yeah.
What made you start this project and make this beautiful video to put out to the world?
Yes. Thank you. Well, there's many levels to, what gets you to do anything in the world, but I'll start with my own personal why. In many ways, I am that girl child in the video, and she really represents the inner child within each of us that comes into the world, presuming their own equality, and just here with a unique path to follow. As I mentioned, I grew up in evangelical Christianity in a Southern Baptist church in upstate New York in the 1970s. Don't ask how that happened. A Southern Baptist church in upstate New York. I grew up in a very girl-centric family. We're the granddaughters of Scandinavian immigrants, and I have to say, we loved being girls. And it was a very supportive upbringing with grandparents around, Swedish and Norwegian grandparents, and my parents, and we bought into a lot of the maybe the sense of optimism of the 70s. We grew up listening to Free to Be You and Me, which has these just beautiful messages of, you can be anything you want to be, whether you're a girl or a boy or whatever your background. So I had a strong sense of equality and fairness, but the one place that was ruptured really from early on and through to this day in my mid-50s, the one place where that, like the sting of my presumption of equality being ruptured, has been in the church. So that is really the main why behind, what has given me this calling. And I could talk more about my own waking up. I've been on a journey of deconstructing, to use that word, my evangelical Christianity and just making my spiritual path my own in a really overt way since my early 30s when I was having babies, but it still continues. But the video, this grows out of my global engagement. I started an organization called the Imago Dei Fund in 2009 with my husband, and we just set out to look for where can we invest in movements of God, social movements that are changing the world for the better. And we started with anti-trafficking in Southeast Asia. And to make a long story short, it wasn't long before I encountered an intolerable status quo, of just, how hard it is to grow up as a girl around the world. And lo and behold, everywhere I went, people would say, well, here in Cambodia, if a man doesn't like what the man is the head of the house, and if he doesn't like what his wife says or what she makes, he can beat her. So a more stark patriarchy than what I grew up with, and just the norms and the traditions that you hear popping up in the midst of kind of a humanitarian scourge. Like the oppression of women and girls has so many humanitarian consequences, but at the root of it, it's the same hegemonic belief system that I grew up with, but taking different forms than what I've myself experienced. So I had something of an existential crisis. Don't waste a good existential crisis. And started really researching, and like, how could this be that in the 21st century, the world is still this oppressive to the girl child? And I was centered in many ways in the girl child. Obviously, girls become women, but my daughter at the time was about 9, 10, the age where a lot of bad things start happening to girls. So I felt kind of this mother bear protectiveness around the world's girls, and just started doing a deep dive into like feminist anthropology, history, theology, and wrote this basically tome called The Girl Child and Her Long Walk to Freedom with my co-author, Reverend Dominic Misolo, who's an Anglican priest in Kenya. And the idea of that was just to bring people on a journey to walk backwards and look at this oldest slavery. It's a slavery that often is not named, but it gave birth to all these other slaveries. In the longer video, I love that you did the multilingual one. It gives a little bit more of a backstory on, just naming patriarchy as the oldest slavery. So anyway, we wrote this book, and the idea of it was to invite really people of faith who are engaged in some way in bettering the world. So they're already on a journey to just dig a little deeper and untangle themselves from this hegemonic belief system. So we've led like maybe 6 cohorts of readers through this reading journey, which follows the Exodus path, using that metaphor of the Bible. And it's the Exodus path is something many people look to as like, the long walk to freedom we're all on together. Basically, it's a long walk, and it's a deep dive, and it's very hard to tell this ancient story. So I had this idea. I had started seeing these explainer videos that are, about 4 minutes, animated. And I'm like, I said to a colleague, what if we could create a 4-minute explainer video explaining the origins of patriarchy? And basically that's what we did. I had a great team, and we gathered some advisors to help us make sure we were really telling the story in a way that is as accurate as possible, but still simple and accessible. And that gave birth to the video that you found. And it has been translated into 12 languages. I think there's another one in process. And the English version has gone viral. I think it's like 60,000 views. And we're now trying to push out the translations more through like a partnership approach with organizations who, speak that mother tongue to just get it out into circulation. So that's one little entry point into my story, but yeah.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Sahana, did you have a question for Emily?
Not a question, but I just love what you're doing and how you expressed it because, yeah, patriarchy is perhaps the oldest form of slavery and completely flies under the radar and it never stops. It's ongoing, continuous. And it's so part of the hegemony that um, we use the label patriarchy all the time, but we often don't see the micro actions on a daily basis that stem from patriarchy. We see the bigger ones, like the rapes and the beatings and all those, but the micro actions, just the words used, just the decision making powers at home, just the choices that are made on a daily basis by almost every 8 billion individual on this planet favors one gender over others,
So much,
to such an
so
extent that it is mind boggling when you try to take it apart. And Emily will know it much, much better than I do, but we've all
No,
gone through it. We are all
we
women, we are mothers, and yeah.
yeah.
it's
So
a
I thank
shared
you for
journey.
working on this.
Oh, thank you. I love how you framed it. Yeah, it's a shared journey. And if I'm honest, so I don't have sexual violence in my own story. Um, I I did grow up in a very secure, and in a lot of ways, my religious formation was like a secure little egg that I've been poking holes through, and um, but just seeing how the very ideas, for me, the idea itself of like the man is in charge of the house, or as a girl, my first moment where my presumption of equality was ruptured in fourth grade Sunday school, where Brother Dan would only ask the boys if they wanted to pray or read scripture or even walk to the office to get something. And that, just that idea was, it punctured something in myself. It was like a sting. Luckily, my mother, who was also the Sunday school teacher, rotating with Brother Dan, my sister and I would go home and complain, and she validated that we should ask questions, like in the video. She was my mother mentor, the Eve figure, and she would complain. So she mirrored that back. But then seeing the intolerable status quo that still surrounds girls' lives, diminishing their humanity, and then the devastating sexual violence, which is still so normal in so many places and just swept under the carpet. It's ideas have consequences, and
Yeah,
so.
I call it psychological warfare. And quite frankly, I think that what I find and I commend you for is having somebody who's from a religious background um, step up and speak in this particular way is definitely taboo. How dare you challenge the scriptures and what was originally written 450 times? So just put it this way, if something has to be rewritten that many times, there's something going on. Something going on. And in the longer video that you wrote, I love that you mentioned Lilith. I love that you mentioned other very important characters that have been left out of the multitude of narratives, not necessarily truth, in order to perpetuate this oppression of women on every single level to the point of self-hate. And so, when I work with my clients, I always say cultivate a polymathic mind. And that's exactly what brought you to this video that I can see. And that all of this is a mind, body, spirit experience. It's not just this segmented way of looking at things. That is a very patriarchal way of causing divide and conquer. You put everything in a box, and this is this, and this is that, and no, they have nothing to do with each other. But yeah, it couldn't be further from the truth. And having clients that, some of them very deeply religious, I can tell you, one of the most difficult barriers of healing is getting them out of that cognitive dissonance, in which, wow, what? That's not true? Or what? That challenge is that. And I can see in the beginning the foundation of everything that they believed kind of fall apart, you know? And
Totally.
you described that feeling of like an existential crisis, but it wasn't until you had one that you can go expand out to get deeper into connection with source, you know? And it's beautiful to see people. I just got goosebumps. To have connection with source is something that's an inside outside job, not an outside inside. You know?
Love that.
Yeah,
So
insight.
beautiful.
That's why all the important words are insight.
Insight. Yes.
Inner healing.
Insight. Yes. Yeah. And the waking up happens before you're conscious that you're waking up, I think. You know, and then it happens in stages, but I love that. Seeing people caught in these contradictions, I'll go with that. So once, just as I was engaging globally, I saw all these amazing organizations, many of them faith-based, faith-inspired, kind of like my tribe, my evangelical tribe, you know, out in really, you know, hard problems in different places around the world, just doing this great work. And so I had almost like this renewed, like, that's my tribe, you know, look at, you know, almost like instead of just doing missions work, like evangelizing, like they're doing this great work within NGOs. But then I started to stumble into some of these exasperating contradictions, which basically, to summarize and boil it down, where people are working in an NGO doing amazing humanitarian work, basically addressing the symptoms of this oldest system, patriarchy, in so many different ways. And you can put all these different terms, GBV, anti-trafficking, sexual violence, and all this language around empowering girls, empowering women. That's become a thing in the NGO world, the humanitarian world. But then they have one foot in that world, and then one foot in a world where, if you look on their website, like, oh, it turns out there's no men no women on the board of the church that you're NGO partners with.
That's hard.
And then even sometimes I'd have these conversations with people, like I dove in, I just enjoyed going on a journey, meeting people, and people, you know, some women that I can remember, some younger women that were just so inspiring to me, but then sometimes would say things that were contradicting the very work they're doing. Like, well, this is just one example. It was an economic empowerment program, I think it was in Uganda, and the language that was being used was to, in the marketing, was to help women be better helpmates, you know, that kind of language. And, you know, so, and then just, you know, just this idea that women are meant to submit to their husbands. Like, a lot of times people still have some vestige of that while they're doing this women's economic empowerment work, you know. So I can feel it in myself too. Like, I, you know, just have been on a journey, but like, you're born into, you know, this mythological bubble and there's a group identity that you have that it gives you security, a sense of place, and even motivates you to do good work. However, it betrays you. And, so the journey of like really reclaiming your own consciousness. And for me, that is what faith means. Faith isn't like a belief system or a belief in a belief system. It's really, to me, it's this, something that is our birthright, a connection with all things, a connection with the divine, but untangling that from these systems that give us security but also betray us. So I think, and we seek to just meet people where they are, to honor that there are beautiful things in every faith tradition, and that people are in process. So just really encouraging people to allow themselves to be in process and allow themselves to have the inner freedom to look at their beliefs in a more conscious way, which is not easy to do.
It's very difficult to do, because if you don't timid no shade, you don't know thyself. It's really hard to help other people. Unfortunately, Sahana had to jump on to another meeting, so she had to clock out. But one of the questions, and it keeps coming up in my mind, is how do you personally, as an evangelical Christian, fight, or not, I don't want to use the word fight, combat, that's even not the word I want to use, but cope with the history of missionary, because unfortunately, missionary has been the hand of hegemony going into different countries in the world to basically soften up the people to colonize. And so how is your organization doing that differently? You kind of explained it a bit, but how do you reconcile that? That you do?
Yes. Well, let me first give a disclaimer that I don't consider myself an evangelical Christian anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's still in many ways my home base. Like if you look at a big map, this is where I started. This was my starting point, and gradually I've expanded into other terrains on the map, and I'm still, as I say to people, I still go to a church that's probably more of a progressive evangelical church. But I go when I want to, and I hold my Christianity differently, and just have, in my waking up, I've had a few different iterations of it, and probably now have landed on, where I identify the threads within Christianity that I identify with are where the contemplative meets the activist, and it's a more universal place where I can connect with others wherever they are on their path. And the name of our foundation, the Imago Dei Fund, to me captures, this birthright that all humans have. We have a spark of the divine in us, and I think the spark of the divine is animated throughout the world, throughout all living things. So I hold a more maybe universal faith posture, while still kind of being in community with my Christian tribe. So that's a little disclaimer. But I struggle. That's probably for many people, many evangelicals that are deconstructing, and there are many. I'm sure you have many on your podcast followers. So, just the idea, growing up with this real pressure that if you don't share your faith, that person is going to hell and it will be your responsibility. That's a lot. And so I don't know. Part of my journey has been recognizing things that I never really believed, but were inserted into my brain, if that makes sense.
Programming, psyop programming.
Right. So I in my early 30s, when I was having babies, I really had this like inner freedom. And I think it was like seeing just these wondrous beings that come into the world. And I just was in awe of them, and maybe just like became a little more philosophical about life and everything. And so it was in that time where I think as mothers, you feel connection with people, all over the world, but where I encountered in a new way the harshness of that missionary viewpoint. And at the church we were going to at that point was a Calvinist church in Boston. And for the first time, I heard the Calvinist bent on, kind of only we are saved and only our tribe is going to heaven. But it really like sent alarm bells ringing in me, like almost like I took it very personally. Like, so you're saying that of my 3 babies, maybe 1 is of the elect and the
There you
other
go.
2 are born into the world with a soul that is degenerate, that cannot connect, is not alive in the same way. And I really just like, and I still to this day, I feel a repulsion or revulsion from within my spirit when I encounter like the exclusivist side of Christianity that says only we are God's children, and we have all the answers that we have to bring. Like, so all the harm, I know probably I don't, everyone on your podcast is just like, I've been on a journey recently, just I went to the African American Museum of African American History in DC, and just the way Christianity has just maimed the collective airways, just been a sanction for slavery and so many hegemonic systems. It's just like devastating on some, for
Well, that's
all my
patriarchy.
ancestors. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
patriarchy. That was intentional. It's part of the plan. Um, I often have to explain to people that I think what happens is a shame comes up, and shame is and guilt are 2 different things. Shame is I am a horrible person. It's totally fixed. There's nothing that I can do to change it. And then there's guilt, which is I have done something or I have supported something, and now I'm going to take steps to make amends. So what I find is that the cognitive dissonance, or the difficulty for certain groups, and I don't want to even single out Christianity. I think all
yeah,
religions who have males leading go through this, which is all of them, have this problem where there's this internal alarm, as you said, going off, going. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is not the way it's supposed to be. I feel it in the deepest core of who I am. Yet, there's the social construct that says you will be isolated, you will be stoned, you will be this or that, and you'll be ostracized from the community if you do not, toe the line and do as we're due. So I see it as more people waking up out of this type of rigid ideology are victims as well, because you did not know what you did not know.
right,
And when you do know, it's a difficult decision to step away,
right,
because I've seen people's families turn them away. I've seen, like,
right.
they're like, well, these are people that said they love me. This is the insidiousness of hegemony.
Yeah, totally,
Heartbreaking.
totally. It's heartbreaking. It's a very brave and can be very lonely journey, and awareness is heavy. Like, it's hard to hold. So, in my just this existential crisis scene, like, how could this be? My presumption of equality, like, you know, I knew, like, going through college and in my 20s, that the world was not totally fair to women, but I think I presume the needle was moving forward. And so encountering, a lot of the movement that we see now, just a resurgent patriarchy, and just all these, just divisions and hegemonic systems kind of seeming resurgent, encountering that, like as long as the needle's moving forward, I feel okay. But when you feel it moving backwards, that's where the existential crisis. So I felt the universe kicking my butt to, and for me, my lane, is within kind of the faith lane, because I do know, I don't think we can blame all these systems on religion, but all of our religious systems have been complicit and have been totally stained by, hegemonic beliefs and ways of being that have utterly stigmatized different groups, but the stigmatization of the feminine that has gone on for millennia. And you see very clearly in the church fathers, so I did a deep dive into, just the great men of faith who, basically gave us all our theology. And then also putting alongside of that all of the passages in the Bible where, God is portrayed as saying, "Thus saith the Lord." God says to Moses that women are unclean for X number of days if they give birth to a boy, and then they're unclean for 2X if they give birth to a girl, and then all the concubinage and, just sexual violence, just allowing myself to lift the hood of my own tradition. And because I think for me, I was kind of, when I was more fully in the mythological bubble, it was my home base, it was my tribe. I still felt like I could complain. So I've always pushed back on the patriarchy in every setting I've been in, and it's been there pretty much until recently. The church we go to has women in leadership, but it still has a lot of patriarchal language and that kind of thing. But I always felt like I could push back because I believed in the whole thing, and it gave me security. But as you start to gain awareness, the whole thing feels almost like it has this disease within it, and just having to make sense of how you can be a spiritual person without all that edifice is very challenging.
Is a perfect word, because it's dis-ease, not
Yes.
feeling at peace.
Yeah.
So how does something that's supposed to bring peace to you make you feel uneasy?
Uneasy. And it's hard, people who are willing to go on this journey, you're just like me, us going to the Museum of African American History, you're subjecting yourself to an awareness that is so utterly painful and dehumanizing. So, in all that we do on this journey, trying to create a supportive place where people, and really honoring, okay, this is going to be hard, but please give yourself permission, like the girl child, to be curious. And sometimes people don't even know how much, all of us don't even know how much we've just accepted, because it was kind of predetermined not to be question answers. Those kind of beliefs that are like the legs under the table, what I mean? That are just taken for granted. Once you start to, as you start to question different things, push back, it's not long, or if you keep going, where, you see the whole thing,
The whole thing is a big bag of doo-doo. That's what I see.
Yeah. Yes. And then trying to how can you find, if you want to stay within your tradition, is there a liberating path that you can hold on to if you want to?
Right.
Many people leave, and I totally understand that and get that. Many people left before they even were fully conscious, because they, even as a child, were questioning things.
Yeah.
It took me
that's
into
the point of being a child too, to question.
to question, right? I admire people who were asking things or notice, like a friend of mine who's Jewish, when it occurred to me that he's doesn't really believe a lot of the things, he said, well, of course I'm Jewish, but I'm not. And his reason was, well, I read the Bible. And just a lot of the horrific things that are in there. And of course you can, if you understand it, you can put it in context and still look for some, belonging and spiritual values. You can reframe things, but there's so much that as evangelicals we say we believe in I'm saying we because it still is my tribe in many ways. We say we believe in the Bible, but we don't really know everything. Like we don't read a lot of passages where
I find most Christians that I've interact with, I know more about it being a non-Christian than being a Christian, and I think that sums it up. They pick and choose which pieces to make you believe in and follow, and it's truly to the benefit of patriarchy and the hegemony. And I also will say, the people who are the most oppressed are the closest to the source, and they know that. And I see women as portals for life. We are the only being on this planet that can give birth. That's a very powerful position. And I know men will hate this, men are fertilizers. But we create the life within us. Therefore, we are the actual pathway to creation. And if anything, we are closer to source than any other on this planet. And I think that is a very intimidating place for males. And I think this is a place of jealousy that in resentment that has built up over millennia. And the typical mantrum, that's not fair. I'm going to make you pay for not me making me feel bad. And then we have this whole system supporting that very infantile and small ideology and mindset that is basically self-deprecating. And so hegemony has a very big benefit. And hegemony is 1%. The thing is that patriarchy and hegemony work. Hegemony uses patriarchy, and it bamboozles the majority of the men to think patriarchy means male. It does not. It's a system of upholding males at a higher esteem than females. That's what it is. And so there's this false ideology in itself. Patriarchy is sort of religion,
and then it also consolidates power in just the hands of a small number of elite men.
Tiny. And I'm like sitting there going, do you know how powerful we would be if we let go of this divide and conquer with the small elite, and I'm going to tell you, very, very bad men, because the trafficking, the abuse are coming from the I don't want to call them people. I don't know what they are, but this very small group have really gross proclivities and habits, and we are satisfying their desire to feed off or whatever is dead inside of them to give our energy for them to feel alive. And so it's very obvious in my opinion, but a lot of people don't. So I see we're getting close to the time. So what I'm going to do is, if any of you want to follow Emily and her work, could you please let us know where we can find you?
Sure. Our website is www.girlchildlongwalk.org. And we would be very happy if you're interested in hosting a watch party. I invite you to watch all of the videos. the main one was done in English, but it was translated into, now I think it's up to 13 languages. I love the multilingual one that we watched together. It really conveys that this is a global journey that we're on, and we're not walking a new path. In every generation, women have been walking this path. Women and men have been trying to, live in a way that all of us can thrive and flourish. So it's, we're standing on the shoulders of amazing people, women included. And I just encourage you to keep walking your path, keep asking the questions. And I'd love to connect with you in any way. And I do hope that Kazi, you can interview her because she can tell you more about the watch parties. So we have been doing sort of like a pilot with some watch parties around the world, and she can tell you more about that since we don't have time to.
Yes, I will definitely get Kazi on here, or EQ Above IQ, which is my other podcast. You can find me at thisreallifebooks.com, and this will be on Spotify as well. I'll be sharing that with you, Emily, so that you can use that. And if you wanted the video, I'll do that as well. And thank you to everybody who's watched this, who's live with us right now, and whoever watches the rewatch or the other, after watch. I forgot what it's called right now. And
watch parties.
We appreciate you joining us, and thank you, Emily, again. Okay.
Well, I appreciate you, Trina. You just have a way about you that elicits these deeper conversations and puts words to these structures that we're all swimming in and in some way pushing back on. And let's just say they're all fake news. Sometimes the more you say thing over and over, it seems real. But all this stuff, is made up by men, and we can remake our spirituality, and it can be a lonely place, but I think we're all in good company. There's a whole tribe of people who are on this path, and I'm really grateful to be in your company, Trina. Thank you.
I'm going to end with fear is just false evidence. Whoops, I blanked out. False evidence affecting, what is the other word? Reality. Oh, it's been a long morning already. So false evidence affecting reality. And so I tell you all to fear not, move forward, and be the change you want to see in the world. Have a blessed day.